Hi folks, I'm Wes Tavegia, and this is my final project for political science class number 6593 at Arkansas State University. So for my final project, I created a guide for the Thrift Savings Plan. And if you're not familiar with what the Thrift Savings Plan is, it's essentially the largest defined contribution plan in the United States. And it covers about 3 million federal employees and military service members. So it's a huge plan. And the guide itself feels of a need for new employees especially. But essentially, the Thrift Savings Plan website that has all the content for the plan, it has several hundred pages of content, contains links and embedded files for dozens and dozens of publications and booklets. And so what the guide does, it condenses that down and it shows folks exactly what to do step by step from the beginning of when they establish their account until after their death, and their contributions and their plan revert over to the folks that inherit that, so their loved ones. So starting off, I talk a little bit about frequently asked questions about what the plan is and how it applies to employees. And then I go on to discuss how to establish a thrift savings plan account. Now, it's important to know that thrift savings plan accounts today are automatically established for almost every federal employee, but they're not automatic for some folks that opt out or folks that might have missed their enrollment for some reason. So it shows how to get enrolled. And then I move on to talk about, once you're enrolled, how to contribute into your plan and how to get the most for government matching funds. Essentially, the government gives you so much money if you put in so much money, and that amount is 5%. So if you put in 5%, the government will match that up to 5%. But I go into details about that. And then also strategies for contributing above and beyond your minimum matching to get the most out of tax savings. So from there, we talk about tax strategies and how to select either traditional or Roth contributions and how that plays out in terms of your current tax liabilities, but also your liabilities when you retire. So it's very important to understand that because you don't want taxes to eat away at your hard-earned money. The next thing I discuss in the guide that goes on, we talk about investment strategies, and this is really crucial too, because when your contributions in the thrift savings plan first come in, they're invested into the G fund, which are government securities. And while they're pretty safe, they don't make a lot of money. And so you have to have diversity in those plans to make enough money to retire comfortably on. So we discuss that and different strategies based on people's risk tolerance and their goals financially. The next stage we move on to is a how-to section on the functions within the Thrift Savings Plan website. So we talk about how to log in, how to allocate different contributions, how to trade funds, how to access your different monthly and quarterly statements. We discuss all that in the guide so that somebody, a new user, even an old user, would feel comfortable using different functions within the thrift savings plan. From there, I move on into the pre-retirement discussion, and that's how to fine-tune tax strategies and investment strategies before you retire. Obviously, you want to avoid paying excessive taxes on your earnings, but you also want to make sure to try and preserve the earnings you've made. At the same time, you have to make sure that you're diversified enough to fight inflation so that you're not losing your purchasing power. We discuss that in the guide as well. From then we move into retirement. Retirement's simple. If you've already established whether you want to take withdrawals or an annuity with your thrift savings plan funds and how you're invested, withdrawals, it's essentially just looking at your statements each quarter and fine-tuning things and just monitoring to make sure you're not going to run out of money. But you should have had things planned out by now with our guide. And the last thing I get into, I discuss briefly death and what happens after you die and where your account goes and how your loved ones can access your account and withdraw the funds they're going to need to remain financially stable in the event of your death. So those are the things the guide covers. So I hope you get a chance to peruse through it. There's lots of photos, there's lots of tips, and lots of discussion on different strategies. Enjoy, and thanks for reviewing my project. Thanks very much. Bye now.